All right, look, I've always wondered, how do I become the best version of myself while leaving my mark on the world? To answer this, I decided to ask exceptional people who have or are currently doing just that. When you have big dreams, it's easy to fantasize about them and just live vicariously through your idols. I believe there's more to life than that. So, through my podcast, you'll learn how to make your dreams look more like goals by seeing how founders, creators, and game changers achieve theirs. You hear about the habits, mindsets, and strategies so you can stop dreaming and start dream making. Welcome to ex-vicarious. Welcome to another episode of ex-vicarious. I'm Braith, and today I'm joined by Ethan Trang. Ethan is the co-founder of DoryAI, NemoAI, and the host of the Major Talks podcast. DoryAI helps you create flashcards, quizzes, and notes from anything. And being a student at the University of Sydney himself, he's got thousands of peers that can thank him for that. So let's jump right in, Ethan. How are you going today?
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Super honored to be here. Love what you're doing with ex-vicarious, and honestly, hoping to be of value to you today and hopefully share what I know.
Yeah, really excited to delve into your story. You strike me as both a lifelong learner and someone who wants to help the world learn better. So, how did this passion for learning start, and what would your top tips be for people who struggle to learn?
I would probably say in terms of learning, I probably always been, I probably always taken my academics seriously from middle school all the way to high school. I think during high school, I was watching more like these productivity gurus like Ali Abdaal, Thomas Frank, where there was this very much mind's approach to learning. And then I learned about things like active recall, spaced repetition, like all these sort of research-backed study techniques that I thought were really cool and putting them into practice. I think I did IB during high school, which is like this international program and just being able to do good in that program through these skills. I always liked the process of understanding the good techniques and then applying them and actually doing well. So I would say in terms of me trying to be a lifelong learner, it's definitely stemmed from a long time ago where I've always liked to take my academics seriously. But yeah, so that was that initial click when I joined Dory with Pete, and which is my co-founder. And I would say that served me understanding personally like how I want to take my education seriously. Like that led into what the product has become. I remember saying initially like I wanted to build a product that I personally would use. And again, I can say that I do. So it was just having that initial background of loving education, loving learning that enabled me to strive for the best in the product that I was building.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in terms of building Dory AI, did you have other ideas for other learning products when you were much younger, or was it something that started coming on when you got to university and you're like, this is what I want to have for now?
To be honest, I don't think I ever saw myself getting into startups and entrepreneurship early like this per se. I knew Pete was doing these projects on the side and he had some success with them. And I came across him on LinkedIn and just knew that sort of my skill sets in tech would merge well with what he was doing in building software as a service, building a tech SaaS. So I just found it to be like I didn't have products and eventually I wanted to be like an entrepreneur. But in terms of getting into thinking of like products in the past, I think I had more grandish ideas of just I would be owning a business and stuff. But being able to just jump in headfirst into a project like this has taught me a lot. And honestly, yeah, I think that's what I would say is for me, it wasn't really imagining or manifesting my way through it. It was just me saying, oh, at the time I was interested in these projects. I thought it was a great opportunity for me to jump in, learn a lot, be able to grow a lot. And I think that's like the way I've approached things. That's just seeing my own skill sets and just jumping into projects to learn.
Yeah, I love that. And in terms of you saying you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, what was the first time in your life you had that feeling and what sort of sparked it?
Yeah, so my dad's a business owner here in Vietnam. So I've always had that like the entrepreneur in the home. So I've always wanted to, do what he's been able to do, help support our family and also relatives as well. So like I've just seen that big power of what, entrepreneurship can do, like the grand scale that you could work with. So I guess and also, having conversations with my dad over dinner or through walks and stuff like of course, I think he's spent a lot of time trying to push me down this road as well, which is definitely been a good thing. But yeah, I think in terms of entrepreneurship, you might see that through content on social media. You might see those people like in your life. For me, I've always had a very positive look on entrepreneurship just because of the impact it's had on my life, where I consider myself to be very privileged and really grateful for the things that I have. And I would say that it's in large part due to the fact, the sacrifice, the effort that my dad had went through as an entrepreneur to be able to give the life that we have today.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I know coming from an Asian background, a lot of the time becoming an entrepreneur may not be the most typical route, but you said that because you've learned that from your dad from an early age. What sort of sparked that passion in him, and what were some of the earliest lessons that he gave you as a kid?
That's a deep question, man. That's an awesome question. I would say, I think it was a lot driven by necessity. So my dad didn't grow up with much. He had worked with my grandpa at the time, just doing simple businesses like fixing bikes, farming. And he got into it quite early. And he got into it, I think, when he was around a teenager, 16, 17 years old. And what story that I really like that he told me once is that I guess he had a bit of a throat condition that he got started with recently, but it was, he couldn't speak very loudly. And I think in terms of within the merchandise sort of businesses, food and beverage, selling these items to supermarkets, other resellers, and him being able to still be confident and still be able to execute despite health conditions, other challenges from his background. I think he very much emphasizes, I think it's like what I take away from that sort of story is that how he's been able to go through all those struggles and still be able to do make it out really well for himself is that he didn't blame really much of his conditions, which I really like. Like he just
Mhm.
knew that he had to just do it anyways, despite all the bias, despite all the struggle. Like you can just do it anyways. And I'm grateful to have, I guess, that living example. Like I get to know really well. And when the times when you think of excuses in your head, that really doesn't mean much to me anymore because look at the stuff that he's went through, and
Mm.
there's plenty of other people that have been to just so much challenge and obstacles that I think everyone faces their own personal challenges. So I navigate through my journey that way, like thinking that okay, these are challenges that I face personally that maybe other people might not face, but it's my challenge and I still have to go through it anyway. So I think the main thing from that I get from my dad is just like grit and understanding like, he's been able to go through these challenges and still make it out anyways. So that was probably the first lesson. And I would say like the other thing that he always tries to reiterate for me and my brother is that making friends and networking has definitely been like the biggest thing for him. Because like in I guess a lifetime, you're not able to get all the skills in the world. Like you can't be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, know everything. So it's having those people in your life that you can just reach out to and get help that helps you move forward a lot quicker. Whether that's in the form of like mentors or just people around your same age working on different things, like being able to just bounce ideas, ask for help, and also give back help as well. Like maintaining those relationships has helped him continue to move forward. And he still has dinners with sorry about that.
Well,
He
good.
continues to yeah, he continues to have stay in touch with these friends all the time. And I wonder sometimes he be going to see a lot of people during the week. And I'm like, I think for him, his philosophy is being able to keep these people in his life because they've made his success and also continue to build on like future success for him. So I think in terms of those two things, those are the two things I remind myself a lot. It's the grit and also like always being able to expand your network, keep those relationships close because those create a lot of opportunity for you.
Yeah, so there's two parts I wanted to go down there. I really like those two lessons. But for the first one, having the grit and I guess fighting against excuses, how has that mentality helped you with certain challenges? Are there any specific challenges you can recall that by having that mindset, it really pushed you through it?
Yeah, I think when we were building Dory AI and like the initial stages where it's like very much unstable and things weren't as fast as other apps, or why we kept on like having to fix the tech, fix the servers, like a bunch of like technical stuff that wasn't really put in place at the time because we were very new at building all this stuff. And what I was always thinking is that there are apps that are successful out there. It's not like every app faces this. We have big apps like Google, ChatGPT. I can just there's plenty of examples of this, but what I thought at the time is that if other people can do it and it's proven that it's done before and it's proven that it's not impossible, then I just need to figure it out anyways. If I don't do
Mhm.
it, then it will constantly be in that state of bad. So I guess in terms of what I reflected on that time is like doing startups independently, like independently from school, independently from working for other people, is that in the company context, like your manager or your company might like punish you, or like in school, if you don't do your assignment, university punish you, your professors, your teachers punish you. But like in a startup in your project, there's no sort of reminder for you. Like I guess I would say like the market punishes you, or result like the lack of results punishes you, because if you don't do anything, nothing will happen. And
Yeah.
the scary part is that no one will tell you to do what to do. You have to go figure that out yourself. So that's where I'm glad that I had some idea of you just had to really believe in yourself at that time, because it would be easy for us to just say, okay, we've never been engineers before, this is normal, maybe we can't really do this. But I think at the time what pushed us through like those initial early weeks of things not working properly was, if we don't do this, it's not going to work, and we're not going to be able to see it through what's going to happen after we have a good product out there. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is like being able to believe in yourself that it's possible, just by looking at people around you and looking at what's happened before, and just being like, it's more of a question about how rather than why. I guess it's like, it's proven, it's done before. You don't need to like reinvent the wheel. You just need to learn how to do it, and then it's over. Then you move on to the next challenge. And yeah, I think I'm rambling on quite a bit, but I think like those early stages where like I felt that lesson really hit me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like how you said when you're starting something that's new, there's no teachers, no parents
Yeah,
to tell you that something is due or you got to do this. As you said, it's the market that will punish you
yeah,
or having no results. So I really like that. And in a way, when you see it that way, you realize how big the impact is of you doing it or not doing it, because it's so many people that I guess don't get the product if you don't finish it for them. So yeah, I love that. In terms of you saying how before creating Dory AI, you weren't an engineer before it. It's like in the process, you became an engineer through it. So, yeah, just a little bit of context for the listeners. How much experience did you have with any sort of development or building before that? And I guess what helped you learn it quickly when you were building?
yeah. I would say that's partly untrue. The fact that I've never been an engineer before. I did like internships before, but I would say the process of, so let me try to rewind a bit. It's funny because I had this conversation yesterday too with a co-founder of
Right.
another startup. But I've been coding, I think compared to a lot of other people, like a lot of people in this space, I've been coding not for too long. I started coding at the end of my 10th grade year. So that was like 2 weeks left of high school before I went to
Yeah.
uni. So I did like this like 4 week course, and I actually initially never intended to get into tech. The only reason why I did that course is because I had another friend who was like really interested in CS, and he just wanted someone to do it with him. I was like,
Yeah.
fine, because it's free. So I did the course for, it was like a 1 week free trial, and I liked it so much that me and him ended up paying for like the full 5 week course. And we did all day. It was in Python. And at the end of it, of course, they wanted to upsell us. Okay, this is the advanced course. This is the next one you have to take. And I was still pretty unsure about whether I would actually pursue coding in tech, like for real. So I just sat on it for a bit, waited a couple months, still didn't want to pay. So my plan was to try to get into the school, like some kind of part-time job so I get access to those resources and learn myself. Super
Yeah.
unethical, would not recommend, would not condone that. But I somehow got in, and of course the teachers saw through me, so they just gave me like a teacher assistant job role anyways, because that's what I wanted. So
Yeah.
I ended up like learning the lesson slides like 3 hours before, and then having to go in and teach and assist in those classrooms. I would say where personally me, I'm not the type to lead code problems of myself and I didn't have a lot of self-made projects back then, but I would say I created that environment for me to pick up the coding quickly. And this will like definitely tie into the start thing I'll talk later. And I've always liked the environment of having people around you and like the environment keep you accountable to that learning. So I had resources that were available to me. I had teachers and classes that were dependent on what I was able to learn and what I was able to produce. So that period of, I think, 7 months of like part-time tutoring, that taught me a lot of coding initially. It gave me a lot of the basics. I would say like pretty far ahead what I would be able to do like self-learning by myself. And then after that, I did this business development internship at a tech company. So it was just like sales, marketing. I still like, he's like my manager then, still a great manager to me right now. And just being able to be inside the tech company, of course, I want like being exposed to engineers and stuff. I wanted to get that like a tech internship. So I asked my way through it after high school. I did a 3 month internship in AI engineering. One of the earlier teams in Vietnam at the time, just super new. in AI, we were all figuring it out. And I'd say those experiences taught me a lot of the foundations of learning how to code and self-learn. And of course, that got me into the door. That got me valuable to be able to join a project like Pete's at the time, where of course, I had proven that I had value and that I had the skills to be able to learn and pick up and be useful to the project. And it was only like when you're in the start where this whole lesson of making your environment and making yourself accountable to this environment becomes super helpful because again, it's like that start condition forces you to learn. Because again, it's if you don't learn, nothing happens. So you just have to learn and just do a lot of stuff. So I would say though, if getting started to I think eventually get it to like the point where you can build your own product is definitely like creating those opportunities early on that can sort of like move you faster in your path. Whereas if you self-learn, you're limited to what you know. And if you create that environment, find those opportunities. And of course it's very hard to replicate, I would say. But in some way in your life you'd be able to find sort of these opportunities. And I would say I think I might have deviated a little bit from your question, but the whole point is to get to that like level where I can code and independently learn and pick up the things right now for the start. It's definitely been like the accumulation of all those experiences in the past, all those foundational skills that I've picked up along the way. That's allowed me to become valuable and also develop that skill of learning and picking up things as you go. Yeah, I would say it's not the traditional path, but I think through that experience, I think there are some lessons that are really helpful for people wanting to start their journey. It's less creating that environment, keeping yourself accountable, and just creating those conditions for like success.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like how you learnt coding that quickly by actually teaching it from such
Yeah.
an early stage. So correct me if I'm wrong, because you know a lot more about learning than I do. But from what I understand, the stages of learning roughly are consuming the content, watching a lecture is the first stage. The second stage is actually writing notes for it. The third stage is revising the notes. Stage after that is doing questions related to
Yeah.
it. And then the last stage is teaching it back to someone when you have that understanding too. And the I guess the most long lasting effect of those stages is when you actually teach it back,
Yeah.
because that's when it's permanently seared into you and you understand it to a point where it's not just memory, it's something that you fully understand. So the fact that you jumped towards that stage so quickly and found a way to do it, I think that's super cool.
I think I would
Yeah.
probably say, sorry to jump in, but I would say you definitely touch on that process of learning being definitely a thing. You watch lectures, you write notes. I would say for me, I just categorize very simply into two sort of things where it's basically understanding and then recall or like retrieval of that knowledge. So
Mm,
that initial phase is like uploading that information into your brain, where you watch a bunch of lectures, you read a bunch of notes. And then the main thing is like the retrieval process where you're answering questions. You're using that knowledge to apply those into projects. So that's where most of the learning really happens because you have to learn from that experience.
mm,
Most of the time learning is just the process of retrieval of information. So for me, I can talk about a really recent experience where a few weeks ago, I wanted to learn like front end development. So I'm traditionally in back end engineering. So for
right.
those who aren't too familiar with software, there's two elements. There's the front end, which is like what's on the website, and then back end is more like the functionality of the website itself. So the way I learned front end was very much I found the people who knew front end really well and asked them specifically exactly what they use. So I didn't want to
Mm,
waste time discovering what I need to learn before I could start learning. I wanted to know what works out there and then almost like properly replicate it. So I knew what I needed to learn. And then it was just like me speed running through a bit of like lectures, YouTube videos, and then straight into a project. And that was like this 11-hour project tutorial. And I would say I've been able to shorten the process of learning front end development until condense that into a few weeks, just because very much clearly think discover what you need to learn specifically. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to waste time on that. And then upload that information, but you're not going to retain it unless you like apply that really quickly. So
mm.
I really wanted to get to the point where like I could start the project as quickly as I could because once you learn the project, you'll figure out what you don't know yet, and then you can go back and I guess upload that information and then like immediately apply it. So I guess that was like my style of learning.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love how you said getting to that application stage as soon as possible. So then you're forcing the retrieval process and forcing yourself to actually learn it properly. In terms of the project, what do you suggest for people? Let's say they want to learn coding, right? What do you suggest for them to apply it to in the early stages? What's a way you think is going to help them stay motivated?
I don't know. I think I'm very for me, I think I mentioned it before. I didn't have many self-made projects before, many independent projects before. And I've opted more for creating the environment where like I could teach alongside someone, or I would like intern for a company, or like work with someone on a project. So for me, being somewhat lazy or somewhat easily to get off track, for me, I would probably suggest like working with someone a bit higher level than you and learning from them first. Because it's sometimes really hard to just dive first into something because you don't have like direction. You don't have like you haven't discovered what's really the things that you need to do yet. So I think for me, being able to come out from that internship experience and learning from a much more senior person gave me a bit more of a better paradigm, a better direction, what this whole big picture really looks like. And then it was much easier to focus on the more micro things, the micro learnings to be able to execute on that. So for me, a bit untraditional advice is I'd say like in terms of starting project, but it's like being able to learn from other people, like learn from what's the right way to do things, and then using that knowledge and try to replicate it. And then like, that being able to branch out from there becomes much easier because you have that foundation.
Yeah, I really like that. And that actually brings me back to the other line of questioning I wanted to go down. So, before you said one of the main lessons from your dad was the importance of networking and keeping really valuable and meaningful relationships. So, in terms of wanting to work with someone a bit more senior in the early stage so that you stay motivated and you're accelerating the path towards learning what's most important from them, what do you suggest for people like younger people who are trying to find that more senior person and trying to network with them? What sort of tips would you give them?
I mean, I could probably ask you about this, like from the people that you've gotten on your blog and like I'm guessing your podcast later on. Like, I think you just need to lean on what you can provide as value to that person. I think I can touch on a pretty cool story that I always think about. So this is
Yeah, for
a
sure.
true story from my old mentor, like the mentor that I did business development for. So like he went to school in Australia, he went to school in Melbourne, he dropped out, went to work for a bank. That didn't really suit his passion. So he left to like work with his brothers and dad in real estate. And when he got his first client, which was this couple wanting to sell their home, like he was really excited because his first project ever, and he really wanted to do it. And like last minute, the couple was like, "Why should I work with you? You don't have any experience. You're pretty young. You dropped out from a different industry as well. Like, why should I sign with you and not someone with 20 years of proven experience, right?" And I think most people would be stumped by that question, or you let insecurity and that stuff get to you. Like for him, he'd said, "If you sign with me, this is my only project. My 100% of my time and effort goes into me wanting to trying to sell your home for the best outcome for you as possible." Where that 20 years of experience guy might have 20, 30 other projects he's working at the same time. So it's the main thing there is without any experience, without any skill, you still can offer your time, your effort, your energy, your enthusiasm to something. So I would say being able to communicate that is the thing that I guess mentors and people who want to invest in you, those people are hungry for that because I think everyone likes to be able to share and to be able to vouch for the underdog. So I would say I can't speak for every scenario and I can speak for every industry, but I would say that the idea of being able to sell yourself in the sense of you have valuable time, you have valuable effort that someone senior might want to be able to that. So in terms of approaching these more senior people, talk to the fact that like you can do this for free, even all your time, all your effort goes into this thing because you're unskilled in the moment. Them taking a chance on you is so much value to you already. So don't ask for much. Like just get in the door and because they'll have to take the cost of training you, talking you through things, at least give them the benefit that you're enthusiastic and you want to be better and you want them to do better as well. So I would say, for each of those opportunities, I really try to communicate that the fact that I can provide value in the form of my time and my energy to that more senior or like that mentor role type of person.
Yeah, I love that. So, for the young people out there, if you're struggling with feeling like you're experienced enough for something, as you just said, you can use that as your advantage because you can show how much more time, how much more hunger, and how much more energy you can give to the person you're asking to
Yeah.
lend a hand to. So I really like that, how you can flip what most people would consider a disadvantage into actually something that is an advantage for you. So yeah, I love that
Yeah.
story.
I ask you something because
Yeah.
like I find you really interesting as well. Where for me, I would say all of that, and I would say I'm still pretty like I want to be able to have something to back up what I'm saying, like not just my time and my energy. But you come from, I guess, this marketing background, and you're approaching like founders from all different types of industries. I'm just wondering, like, how do you approach them to give out their time to help you write this blog and produce content? I'm just wondering what's your sort of process for reaching out to these more high level people.
Yeah, so I guess a lot of the time my background is quite unrelated to the people I reach out to. I guess one focus of the podcast is, I guess, inspiring people to chase their dreams, no matter what dream it is, no matter what industry it might be in. So, because that's so built into the backbone of what this podcast is about, it reflects a lot in how I outreach people. So, I never really focus on industry when I'm outreaching anyone. What I focus on is either something we might have in common or wherever my curiosity is. So the people I reach out to is all people that I'm genuinely curious about, whether it's something that they're doing themselves or something that they're doing that's impacting others. And I think just leaning into that curiosity genuinely and discussing how we could actually do something about it, share the learnings from whatever I'm interested about them is, or whatever impact they're having. Like, how can we actually share this on a bigger scale and have more people hear about it, have people learn from it? I think, yeah, that does help a lot in the outreaches for people to want to give up their time as well. Because I know, yeah, a lot of them are super busy. So I appreciate it a lot, like yourself as well. I appreciate it a lot, people coming on and sharing their time, sharing their learnings with the listeners. So yeah, I think the main thing is just being genuinely curious and not worrying about boxes too much. So I don't like, the whole point of this is so that industry is something that doesn't matter, because everyone has a diverse and a unique set of dreams. So even if you hear someone talking, like a tech founder, for example, and someone else wants to be, let's say, a singer, they could still learn a lot from them, because the focus is the mindsets and strategies and habits they put in place to reach their goals, and then why they want to impact the world, right? So yeah, I guess the focus is taking it away from what industry people might be in and worrying about if that's relevant to me or not, and just focusing on what I'm genuinely interested in, because then it is relevant to me naturally.
Yeah, honestly, you touch on something so important. I think it's just like genuine interest in the other person because it's something that you can't really fake.
Yeah.
I think with some like people that I reached before, I think I sometimes had made the mistake of just wanting to reach out to them because they're this high profile CEO like working in this industry, but not actually taking the time to interest specifically why I wanted to talk with them and what specific questions I would ask them. So I think in terms of reaching out to people who, um, of course, they might work for this big company, they might have this really good role, they might do this really good work, but I think tying what's really cool about that to what you're interested in is really important. Because I think like being able to be really genuinely interested in what they do, and genuinely interested in learning, because everyone wants to share like what they do, but also tying that to like specifically what you want, because it also saves them a lot of time, right? Maybe some people they like to share, but they also want to help you specifically because helps them a lot as well. So I think those two elements, I would say, just to add on to what you said, is like having that genuine interest and also tying that to a really specific ask, or at least like trying to follow up on something that makes sense for that person, that senior person or that mentor person to actually take the time to talk to you and see it through.
Yeah, being specific and concise is so important, because a lot of these people, they super busy. So I mean, you have to be super clear about what you're asking, as you said, and the more concise you are with your outreaches, the better. Like, for anyone out there who's trying to outreach other people, just try to be as concise as possible, because chances are, if you have a long message, it won't get read at all. Whereas if you have a short message, at least that gets your foot in the door of them giving it a read, because it's so short. So
Yeah.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. And on that topic, I wanted to talk about you outreaching these people and how you've been doing the Major Talks podcast. So yeah, I just wanted to ask, what got you started on the podcast? What compelled you to actually start it? And what sort of things have you learned along the way?
Yeah. In terms of getting started, definitely for selfish reasons. So like I was in high school and I wanted to like find out what are these top college students doing to get into colleges, Harvard, MIT? Because at the time I was interested in studying the US. So the best way to do that for me at the time, what I was thinking is like you get a podcast, you use the podcast as an excuse to talk to them for 2 hours, and then you just get what you want to know. And I knew like people resonated with what I wanted to know at the time because I knew that would be helpful to like peers among my age. So it was like disguised element of like community service. I'm sharing the knowledge of top college students, but I would say of personal interest, it was just like me figuring out like what they did to be able to get into these really high top colleges. And honestly, it's not really a bad thing. I think if you can tie your community interest with your personal interest and use that as a vehicle to like progress yourself, like that's great. It's a win for everyone, right? It's a win for you. It's a win for the guests. It's a win for the people who listen to the podcast. So finding that was probably like the big trifecta of starting that podcast. And ever since starting uni and stuff, that wasn't a huge emphasis for me anymore. It was more so being able to connect to people who I personally wanted to talk to, regardless of the whole image around college and university that I had built before. Because I knew eventually I looked at the people like Lex Friedman, Tim Ferriss, and these guys who do podcasts for a big chunk of their time. And for me, I started like niche with the college thing because it's easy to resonate, it's easy to understand. I don't personally have anything to like, back up what I say. So just leveraging other people's voice and leveraging that sort of niche to get started. And sorry, what was the second part of your question again?
Oh yeah, like along the path of doing this podcast, what would you say is like some of the coolest things you've learned?
Oh shit. That's a good question. I would say that most people at the top don't really have it figured out and like in the best way possible. Because like you have people who like study like chemical engineering at like prestigious university and then go off and no, I don't want to do this. I want to go into consulting. I want to go make films, right? Because like I think what people have backwards is like these people are super dedicated, super focused people that, of course, that doesn't take away from like the hard work that they've done. But what I'm saying is like a lot of these people are still figuring it out too, at least at the sort of like age range and like the experience range that I was talking to, where it was like, yeah, like these people, when you really dive deeper into their story, like they, for the most part, didn't have it figured out. It was like the lessons, the more like intangible lessons that they picked up along the way that allowed them to like switch or pivot or take on new challenges, take on new opportunities at each step of the way. So that was a really important lesson. Like people who were traditionally focus on focused career paths and then doing content or making films or like doing projects on the side. So that was a really like refreshing thing to see. These people are still people. Like we put these labels in them, like Ivy League student or top notch student or CEO. But you really just break down their story, like this is the way that they live their life, and it's just inspiring and admirable to see like the way that they think and the way that they operate and what their life story has been so far. So that's the first thing. And I think so I've also talked to much older people as well on the other side of the spectrum. And for me, being able to talk to people who are retired, who've had a really admirable career, is that they're still like, for the most of they're still really passionate and they're still very energetic to what they do. And I think it's really good to see the spectrum between this is what it's like early in the journey, middle of the journey, in terms of career, and the end of the journey. And being able to, it's hard for me to extract very specifically what the insight is, but it's if you just talk to people at each step of the way, like you have a different way of thinking of your own life. Like if you're working towards this goal and you talk to someone at the end, maybe it's, oh shoot, like you don't want to do this anymore. Or like you want more out of this personally, which isn't a bad thing. It's not to say something bad about that person who's like at the end of the career, but there's so much like lesson to be learned to just talk to someone there because like you can make these plans in your head, but without evidence or like data or these things for you to reference, like you might be like guiding yourself in a way that doesn't make you happy or won't make you fulfill or like it's limiting yourself. So I would say the biggest lesson is more like a meta lesson about the podcast is like connect with people at like all stages of the journey and even be open to talking to people who have nothing related to what you initially had in mind. So like, I was talking to people in marketing at the time and film and stuff where I wasn't personally interested, but then I became interested in like the whole marketing and like how people work and I read like marketing books after that. So I think it's very much like trying to see a much bigger picture opening your mind to a lot of other people. That's been like the meta lesson that I've taken away from interviewing people across that time.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like how by doing the podcast, it just makes you so much more open minded and exposes you to so many more experiences, industries. And as you said, you interview people in Ivy League and then you interview people who are retired. And by seeing that huge range of perspective, it really helps you figure out things that you can find interest in. So I think that's really cool. So what would you say that your goal, obviously your goals have shifted throughout time of doing this podcast from the day you started to now. So what would you say is your main goal or main reason that you continue to do the podcast today, and who are the people that should listen?
I think so in terms of putting this like content out there, like what I want is to be able to document my life like throughout the process of creating content as well. Like I do create content on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And it's like I want to be able to show that a bit of a longer journey. These are the questions that I asked initially. These are the questions I'm asking in this stage of my life. And these are the specific people that I'm reaching out to. And listen, I'm not special. And I know that there's other people who want to be able to be more or less on a similar path to what I'm doing. So in a sense, being able to just be my true self in that content creation process, asking the things that I want to ask, reaching out to the people that I think are valuable to talk to and share what they learn. That's huge for me because I personally want to document what it's going to be like. And at the same time, if you can provide value to other people, your peers or like people slightly older, slightly younger, people who are just getting started on the journey, that's going to be, I feel like that's going to be a big investment, like for myself over the long run, just being able to share and document learnings from other people and like throughout my questions and stuff also teach some of the ways that I think. And I hope that if success does come later on, that becomes like a really nice blueprint or a nice framework that because I've been inspired by other influencers and creators that have documented the journey. And that's the reason that I'm inspired to do the things I want right now. And even though that I'm not there yet, I think it's not an excuse for me not to document things. So in a sense, like the podcast and the whole content creation journey becomes that. It becomes my interest in documenting what I know, but I think I want to be like have that process be of service to people and hopefully inspire people and educate people along the way.
Yeah, I think it's awesome when you're doing something to learn personally, but it helps other people learn as well. I think that's, yeah, it's a great way for, as you said before, like a win for everyone. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I want to jump back now and talk about your earliest dreams. So are there any dreams that have stayed with you to this day that you may have had when you were just a kid and potentially outside of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I've always wanted to be okay, this is going to sound so dumb, but I've always wanted to be like, okay, I had this idea in my mind where I would make this YouTube series of I spent a month learning how to be a pilot or waiter or chef. For
Yeah.
me, I think the whole thing, I'm like, I'm not sure you get what I'm saying, but I want
No,
to be
I get
able
what
to
you mean.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, treat yourself as this life experiment. So I've always wanted to experience a lot more out of this short time frame that we call life. So yeah, I think for me, it's just I wanted to create. I wanted to just experience a lot of different things. I didn't mention this before, but like at the same time I was applying to that tech internship, I was also applying to be a nurse at a local
Right.
hospital, which is like really like divergent from
Yeah.
what I'm doing right now. But like the whole, I think that's still true to me right now. It's true in the fact where I like to talk to people who are just outside of the industry, like doing completely different things. I love those conversations. And at least for me, like I can still live my life, live that life through their stories. And because maybe I might not be able to do it all. So in terms of dreams, I think entrepreneurship has always been something that I wanted to do, like sooner or later. I'm glad that I started like earlier than I expected. And the other thing is just being able to understand other people a lot more. And whether that's through like their career or like their profession or the projects that they do on the side and being able to talk to them and ask them about it, living their life through their stories. That's something that's still going to be true for me. And I think it's a dream that probably can't doesn't have this end goal to it, but it's the
Mhm.
whole idea of I want to know like how everyone in this world kind of experiences life And although I'm very dedicated to the path that I'm taking, because I think being focused on one vertical, it is the greatest way for me to make impact as well. But along the way, I still want to be able to like experience more than what I traditionally would have in a sense. So I have dreams of going to Alaska and South Africa, which my parents would never approve of. But maybe eventually I'll get to that
Yeah.
point. But yeah, it's just you just think of the craziest shit. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear on the
Oh yeah, no,
podcast.
go for it. You can say whatever you want here. Yeah, there's no
I was just
restrictions
saying,
on.
you just think of doing like the craziest stuff, and I think that's great because I think what I don't want to lose is that kid like excitement when it comes to a lot of things. Even when I talk to like friends and catch up for a while, I have that kid like childlike excitement when I'm
Mhm.
talking to them. I don't want to think of myself becoming an adult and that I should be doing things a certain way. Like for me, it's just being able to chase opportunity and create more freedom for myself so I can do the things that I want to do. And that is having good conversations, living life through other people's stories, and also just achieving personal success. And I think personal success for me is just being able to impact the people around my close circle in much more impactful ways, but also be able to spread that impact on a lot larger scale, whether that's through my content, through my work, yeah, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So when you said you had that dream of for a couple months, you become this job, for
Yeah.
example, and then this. Yeah, I actually agree with that a lot, and I think it would be pretty cool. I don't know. We can talk about it after the podcast, actually. But
Yeah.
if we did something like that, both of us trying one thing for 3 months and then just
Have
documenting
you
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know about Tim Ferriss's do you know a lot about Tim Ferriss?
yeah. I'm a huge Tim Ferriss fan. Yeah,
Yeah, because he calls himself like the human guinea pig, right? And he had
yeah,
this series before where he learned how to drum for 30 like in 7 days or something like that. Like he learned how to play poker and then he had to go like play against a world class player. Or had to play in a concert or something. Like that's because Tim Ferriss has made it for himself. Like he's rich, he's like an angel investor at this point. Like
yeah.
that inspires me, like what he's been able to do.
Yeah, I'd say Tim Ferriss. The reason why he's my biggest inspiration because he seems to be able to do everything. Like, there's everyone always says you have to be really good at one thing if you want to be successful in general. But I don't know. Tim Ferriss seems to be good at a lot of things. Like there was the other story where he won a kickboxing competition. I don't know if you remember that one,
Yeah.
but and his strategy was crazy as well. So it was before became normal to lower your weight during weigh-ins and then drink a lot of fluids to get bigger again. Before that was the norm. That's what he did overseas. And so he basically put on 20 kilos after the weigh in on the next day. And then there was also like a technical rule. If you push your opponent out of the ring 3 times, it's a technical knockout. And that's all he did because it was like 20 kilos heavier. I think it was somewhere in Asia as well. So 20 kilos heavier and just pushing the guy the whole round. And then he won a kickboxing competition. And I think it was also like the tango champion of
Yeah,
yeah.
he's crazy, man. He has Guinness World Records and everything. Like he's a
Yeah.
tango dancer. I know that kickboxing because I'm guessing you read 4 Hour Work Week, right?
And I think he talked about it on one of the podcasts as well in a bit more detail as well.
That guy's awesome, man.
Yeah, but yeah, let's definitely discuss that a bit more afterwards. That
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
I just wanted to jump onto talking about some of the barriers throughout life. Have you ever had internal or external barriers to pursuing your dreams? Because you have seemed to me like someone who, whenever you want to learn something new, whether it's a new skill or certain industry you want to learn more about or actually do some work in that industry, you've always found a way to go into it quickly. But yeah, I want to talk about it. It could have been maybe a early on thing that you dealt with. Were there any like internal or external barriers that you've faced in the past?
I would say like I wouldn't call them like barriers per se. I would just say like the way that I think and the actions that I do is very much determined by the environment. And I think like everyone is some like in some way a product of their environment is like the term that I usually say. So in terms of the way that I approached my studies and my work, like when I was here, let's say during high school before I went to Sydney, is very much dictated by the friend circle that I'm in. That's why they say you're the average of the four people you surround yourself with. Um, and I had certain approaches. This is why probably why I studied hard is because when you're young and you study hard and you get the validation from your parents and your relatives, it trains your mind to want to do that even more, even though I didn't understand it at the time. And going through high school and like being friends with some of the smartest people in the grade, I would say that's something that continues to push me because I interact with them every day. This is the way they think, and I'm inspired and I admire the way that they think. Um, and when it comes into work, like this applies to like the negative side as well, where like I might have picked up bad habits or bad processes, not necessarily bad, but not ideal, from like friends, or maybe you might be influenced by the way like your family thinks or like the way that your parents think. Those aren't necessarily bad. The way why they say those things is also because this is how they've experienced their life, and that's things they say. So my mom's worried about me living alone. Do I know how to take
Mm,
care of myself? So I would say she worries and she's anxious. But for me, what I take out of that is that you should be very planned and very understand the holistic picture before you jump into something. So whereas you just for me, like, I've been able to wanting to reflect more broadly on like sort of those minor influences in my life. So the people I interact the closest with and the people who the content that I consume. I think I call this like the information diet that you have. Like it's the social media content you consume, is the people that you talk to, is the things that you do and things that you see that kind of determine like how much motivation you have in something, or like the actions you want to take,
mm,
or like the beliefs and the things that you think about, like how you think about yourself. So it's just about really much like curating that and reflecting on that. So I would say in terms of being able to push the barriers or push my potential was definitely coming to Sydney and putting myself into a lot of different projects. So whether that was joining the project with Pete, whether that was like joining the community and build club, right? All those things have been able to let me see, open my eyes more. And I hope that the soon trip to America will do the same for me. Is like being able to expose yourself to a lot more increases your surface area of luck. And I think it's something that Andreessen Horowitz does mention, where by increasing your service area of luck, that most people, I'd say, most successful people have relied on luck. Like Bill Gates was the only student who had access to a computer at the time, or Mark Zuckerberg like had quite privileged conditions when he got to go to Harvard and got to meet the those what are the brothers' names? But anyways, that's besides the
yeah.
point. But the whole idea is really overcome barriers. Like I think there's like mental barriers in your head, just understanding like how have you been wired up to this point in your life, and understanding that, and then it's about you taking action and then creating the opportunities for that wiring to change, for you to see more and expose yourself to more, talk to people and understand the way that they think. And it's the whole point. You can't get all the information. So you really have to take care of this information diet that comes into you and surround yourself with the people that, you want to, you see yourselves being like emulating in some way. So I would say it's hard to start initially, even though I did it subconsciously. And it's not something that you have to like immediately beat yourself up if you don't do it correctly. It's just having that thought in the back of your mind. And then like I'm really grateful to be able to have some more leverage given what I've been able to do so far, where I can get to the people that I want to talk to easier. So I think I would say it's more like a big progression of expanding your potential and letting down these barriers. Is understanding yourself, understanding your wiring, and then being so proactive in creating that opportunity for yourself. Because I'm against of like I'm not necessarily against, but I think you can't make a perfect plan for your life. You have to rely on like the luck that you're gonna meet this person. You're gonna rely on the luck that you had this conversation at the right time in the right place with the right person. So in terms of more simple plans, oh, I'm gonna be like this successful doctor, I'm gonna be like this successful engineer. I don't think with that paradigm too much often anymore. It's more for me like trying to create the most opportunity for myself and aiming generally like where I want to be and with the people that I want to meet and like the things that I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And in terms of the information diet that you talked about, I'm just curious, what sort of things have you filtered from it when it comes to consuming content, especially over social media? And what sort of things do you actively or allow yourself to keep consuming?
I think I'm not like hugely strict on it. You'll find me doom scrolling every now and then, more often than I
Yeah.
like to admit. But for me, I would say a huge part that I talked to my co-founder about this because he helped me realize this. So he started doing these projects, like these SaaS projects. He even sold one before as well. So, and when I was initially talking to him, I was like, what resources do you use? What do you watch? And what do you follow? And he just told me all the people that he followed on Twitter, showed me the videos that he watched on YouTube. This is exactly what he does. And like we continue to share these resources back and forth. So like that helped me understand because he's been consuming this content for let's say 1 to 2 years. That's why he can think the way that he thinks, and that's why he can do the things that he
Mm.
does. So In terms of curating the content, I think more of curating those people in my life. I'm like trying to maintain those relationships really close, the closest that I can, and continue to be able to share knowledge and receive knowledge. And if it's like personally on social media and stuff like that. Books that you read, podcasts you read are really easy to control, just on your Spotify list, or books that you download and you read. And on social media is probably the dangerous one, where you really have to curate it the best that you can. I would say it's probably best to cut it down the most part, because there's not too much value that you can get. But I would say for my own content journey on Instagram, like, I like to follow creators who I want to emulate. So whether that's like Minho Lee or Daniel Dalen, like these are the creators that I follow that naturally I'm prone to watching their entire video. So that helps
Mm.
the algorithm to help create those content better for me. So I think it's just like understanding what research, like what information goes into your head, and then, doing the best you can to work around it and not being too strict about it. Like, give yourself the chance to watch like those dumb stupid videos every now and then, because like it just keeps you sane. I love watching food videos. I love watching like Uncle Roger and Nick DiGiovanni. So it's sort of like more genuinely, nudge yourself in the right direction. Like, just be a bit more like conscious and aware about it.
Yeah, those videos are dangerous, man. I just get so hungry, and I'm just like, even if I've eaten already, I'm like, I want to go out and try this right now.
It's so
Like,
funny.
but yeah, I agree. Like, social media is the hardest one to control, and especially when I'm doing work related to social media, even if it's when I'm looking at people's profiles because I'm going to outreach them. And then it's so easy to just start scrolling and start looking at all this random stuff. So, yeah, social media is the one where, as you said, the easiest way is to just limit it rather than trying to curate the content because it is very hard to do so. So, I know you mentioned Build Club before. I just wanted to ask you about your experience with Build Club. How that's been? And because I know that recently when you pitched at Australia's biggest demo day, you and Pete won the had the winning pitch. So I just wanted to ask about your whole experience with Build Club and with the pitch and how that's been going.
Yeah. Honestly, this is a great shout out thing that I said before, where by the way of curating your algorithm. So I found out about Build Club through my LinkedIn algorithm. So
Right.
shout out to Annie, because I saw her post. And Annie runs Build Club. She's absolutely amazing. Um, to say like joining Build Club seemed like a no-brainer to us. It's like there's an AI community here in Sydney. So that's exactly what we do. Let's just join. There's nothing to lose. So we ended up joining. We went through their like Sunday co-working sessions for a couple of weeks, and Annie at the time was setting up the accelerator, which is the thing that's associated with the demo day that you mentioned. So I would say it's a pretty interesting story because we were approaching the end of the semester and it was getting very intense, like with school and stuff. So initially, I didn't know if we were going to do the accelerator or not, but Pete pushed us to do it because there's literally still nothing to lose, right? If you lose, like the whole point is like you can get in, like getting into the accelerator has probably been like the biggest needle, like the thing that moved the needle the most for us, just personally, I would say, because the accelerator is 16 startups, people who came from freaking Argentina. People from Argentina came for that
Mhm.
accelerator. And we were contemplating, like, it just feels so stupid at the time that I thought that. So, like, I hate myself for it. But okay, so, like, we did the startup and we went through the accelerator and there was, like, workshops and dinners with venture capital firms. And, like, we got to see their offices and talk to their people. And even just the day to day, like 7 days a week, you're just sitting next to some of the most cracked engineers, product managers, like ever. I can even briefly mention there were like literal book authors, people who run like companies with 100+ people. People who co-founded the tech that we all use today,
Yeah,
like Google Maps. There was one of the co-founders of Google Maps in that
it's
accelerator.
crazy.
And then there's us, right? And there's we feel like the most misplaced people ever. But I mean like it was more because you're young, people and not necessarily like we could people like wanted to know what we were doing, like how do we get to this
Mm.
point? So it was that underdog effect where like, okay, what are these kids doing here with us? So it was not like any disrespect, and it was like very much genuine curiosity. And at the same time, we knew what our level was and we wanted to learn so much from these guys. So I would say that 6 week process has been like so we've made so many wonderful connections that we still have. Being able to learn and have the environment to rapidly push us in the right direction even alongside the busyness of university work. And coming up to that demo day at the end, Like we knew that the grand prize was like getting tickets to San Francisco. And I remember telling Pete, we didn't go for like a traditional pitch. We went for more of telling our narrative because I think the main thing that we got throughout that process in the accelerator was understanding that our story was unique. And it was unique enough that people in the accelerator want to reach out to us about it. It was unique enough so that people on LinkedIn want to reach out to us about it or like, understand what we did. So like we leaned on that narrative. We leaned on the narrative that we were like, it was this true narrative anyway. So we were university students, wanted to build products for university students. This is what we did. This is the traction that we got. And then we like put the cherry on top by having the more traditional pitch elements at the end, like your market, your pricing model, etc. And I would say like, being able to tell a story about yourself is like the best way to leave like a lasting impression on someone. And I think I really hope that it ties back to the whole thing, like what we've been talking about in the podcast so far is the way you tell your story to a mentor, the way that you tell your story to a person whose project you want to join, right? It's being able to like curate that story that aligns with your own personal interest, but aligns with community interest as well. So in that demo day example, I would say that community interest is wanting to vouch for people who are dedicated to what they do, like who've been able to achieve some like level of progress and success and continuing to feed into that. So I would say being able to present ourselves as like uni students who've been able to start this project. This is what we've learned. This is what we've changed. This is our direction. This is what we achieved so far. And being able to present that story in a really like nice, exciting way. I think that was like I would say like I wrote a LinkedIn post about this, but I emphasized a lot about telling a really good story because we remember stories and stories resonate with us. Like we can see ourselves in those pictures sometimes. So winning that demo day, like there's some videos where it was so embarrassing to see myself jump like that. But it was like it's pretty cool though. Like to have that be the capstone of that 6 week accelerator, which was already like life changing in itself, and being able to go to San Francisco in about a week. I can't like thank Annie enough for starting that community and being able to be a part of it and being able to give back to it as well. So for me, it's just like just being very grateful for those opportunities and being grateful for the fact that I can go to Sydney and be exposed to these opportunities and be able to take advantage of them. But yeah, I would say I'm not sure if this is a really good response to your question, but the whole Build Club experience has just been like it's just like something that I've been so happy to be able to experience. And I know even years from now, I'll be talking about this specific experience that I had. And hopefully still that becomes useful for information for anyone getting started.
Yeah, shout out to Annie and the Bill Club. I'll put the information in
Yeah.
the show notes, and congrats. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for you going over to San Francisco for that. So, yeah, I'll put the links in there for people to check out the video of your pitch, as you said, with the celebration. So, yeah, I wanted to ask what's next for you. I know that after DoryAI, you guys created NemoAI, and is the plan to continue creating these AI apps that really help people with learning, or do you have some other goals outside of that that you're consciously working on right now? So yeah, just wanted to ask, what are some of the next goals on the next dreams for you?
Yeah. In terms of the start right now with the products that we have, I would say each step of the way, I guess of like this startup lifetime, you'll experience different problems. I think my co-founder talked about a really great quote yesterday, whereas first time founders focus on product, second time founders focus on marketing. I think third time for founders focus on something, but I forgot. But let's just start like let's think about the first two.
Yeah.
We're very much in a phase of we have the product, but we haven't cracked distribution and marketing yet. So that becomes like our next problem, right? Being able to like push this product to the masses and seeing what's there. But in the end, I'm not like emotionally attached to the startup. Of course, I want it to work well. I want to be able to learn from that experience because I know being able to work with a startup that's like at this stage is still a really valuable lesson. I like to think of it as like the next module in the course, the startup course that I'm taking. It's like a problem that I've been able to unlock because of like the previous work and the previous modules that I've done. So I would say that's the biggest thing for us is being able to crack that specific problem for our startup. And it's unpredictable. Like startups are like uncertain, they're risky. You put a lot of time and effort into them and you don't know if they're gonna work out or not. So like feelings of uncertainty and like these hard problems that we don't even know how to get started with, that's pretty common for us like right now. And primarily like I would say personally on the side, like me and my co-founder, like we're actively trying to upskill is the term that we like to say. I think challenges that we face, whether that's tech challenges or marketing challenges for the start, it's definitely just a skills issue. We're still, as much as we are like first time founders and being able to build the product that we have so far, we're very much unskilled in a lot of things. So for us, it's just like creating the opportunity for us to learn, whether that's like possibly like taking work, part-time work, internships, onboarding other mentors and technical advisors to help us on this journey. And that becomes like a continuing thing. Cause I wouldn't say I'm like, we're not we're not capable of running a really big startup yet, or a really successful startup yet, just because we haven't had the skills. We don't have the skills yet to be able to achieve that caliber. So I would say the startup teaches us a lot, and we also have to teach ourselves a lot on the side. So being able to step away from uni for a bit for the break, just
Yeah.
dive deeper into learning has been a huge thing for us. And honestly, taking the time to rest a bit, spend time with family. So my co-founder is Vietnamese as well, so he's here in Vietnam. So appreciating those moments, learning on the side, and just reflecting and redirecting what are we going to do once we're back busy and trying to create more opportunity for ourselves. So I think the general direction is very much a mix of this is the project that we're working on, this is the stage, and this is the problems that we're facing. And personally, this is our stage of our life, and we're trying to make best bets for us to get the right skills to be able to do things that we want to do later on. So there's definitely very much been like the mindset in terms of like my next steps. I probably think of it in a 3 month timeline. Like, I
Yeah.
think so many things are so unpredictable. That's why I said before, I'm not too much of a plan oriented person. I'm very much of thinking like what's happening right now and where I want to be, and like just thinking of solutions for the current moment, and just betting on the fact that they're going to help me like in the future. So yeah, I would say hopefully that answers your question, but like
Yeah.
those would be like my next steps and what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and what I'm looking forward to next.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And on the topic of distribution and marketing, who are the people that will benefit from Dory AI and Nemo AI?
Yeah, so Dory is flashcards, quizzes, and notes generation, where you can upload any source. So whether that be a file, a video, a website, we're going to support more integrations as we go on. And Nemo is more like this writing and research co-pilot, where you can start writing your essays with the co-pilot to help you with research, finding sources, citing, helping you overcome writer's block. So I would say we know that there's a lot of applications for this use case. So you can have university students who are more like writing essays, K-12 students in programs like IB, AP, HSC that would benefit a lot from standardized question formats in the form of flashcards, quizzes, etc. And then any other area where like learning happens, so like staff training for knowledge workers. So I would say like more generally we're niching down on university students because that's the biggest market that we're trying to tackle so far. But yeah, it's it's a learning tool, so you can apply it to whatever context you want it to.
Okay. And for the final couple questions I wanted to ask you, which I do ask every guest, is if you had to live your life following the words of one single quote, what would it be?
Shit, man. Funny thing is, in my podcast, I have these final questions as well, and they're like, I understand the pain of them right now. It's like, how do you think of this stuff? How do you think of this stuff on the
Yeah.
spot? So I love the guests who just give something awesome. I hope to be able to do something like that. But I would say a quote to live by.
So it doesn't have to be something that's like fancy, someone's written that stayed
Mhm.
throughout time. Could just be something someone told you, someone close to you told you, or like something that you tell yourself as well.
Yeah, I think there's this quote that I really like a lot. It's by Maya Angelou, and it's like people will forget what they say to you, do to you, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I think, yeah, I think of it more in that way. I don't. I think the way that you make them feel, make another person feel, is very much like the attitude that you have around them. And it's you don't think you're better than them. You think you can learn a lot from them. That's the first thing. You just treat everyone with respect, manners. And if you're in a position to help that person, give them that value for free. I'm really like big on being able to share what I know, my personal experience. I don't try to put it in the guru format, but just being able to share my life experience and letting someone who I feel like would benefit from that experience listen to it. Because I've benefited from those people before. People who are like much older, like people who I consider mentors who just been so generous and articulate about sharing what they know And that's really been able to like push me to do things and be able to do the things that I want to do. So I would definitely say in that sense is where I want to be able to have that positive impact and have people remember me as this person that I've been able to help them or I learned from them and I actually did something with it. And that's the main thing, like the way I treat my mentors, my family's friends, and people who I can help along the way.
Yeah, I love that. And the final one, if you could reach everyone in the world for 30 seconds, what would you say to them?
Listen to the ex-vicarious podcast. Sorry, I
Oh,
had
that's
to do the
crazy.
plug
Crazy
too.
plug.
I had, bro. If they're at
I
this point,
appreciate it.
they're a real one, man. If they've gotten to
Yeah.
the end of my endless ramble, thank you for actually surviving up to this point. So, and thanks, Braid, for being able to endure it with me. But I would say, in terms of like 30 seconds, shoot, I don't know. I like a lot of the times, I really think that I don't have much to say. Or I've only realized like recently, maybe it's just like my life experience and just being able to capture it authentically and share it authentically, that other people can just take that and then apply it to their own life. So I would say if I really had 30 seconds, and I would probably try to target people who want to like start a path that I'm trying to start, is very much, I don't know, it sounds so dumb, but you just need to like take action. And because I would say like when I wanted to do that course or that coding course in grade 10. For me, it was just as simple as taking action. I had no idea that would lead me to business internships, tech internships, being able to build my own startup. Forget about planning, like at that point. Just think about, for me, because of that life experience, I've always thought about if you just take action in the right places and just make the right bets, sometimes it's just going to work out for you. So for me, it's just like taking action, and for everyone that will look differently and the results will look differently. If you just make things move, you'll just have like ripple effects and like reactions and it'll just come back to you. So like that would probably be my message, man. Taking action.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, for the final thing, is there anywhere you want to direct audiences? Any final words you want to leave them with, or anything you want them to check out?
Yeah, honestly, this is shameless plug, but you can definitely follow my journey that I tried to document, like on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram as well at Ethan Trang with two G's. Like I'm just starting out that content channel, and of course, like I have upcoming plans for the podcast. I'll talk with you about this later. It's very much like for me, I'm going to try to document the journey as I go. So for me, if you resonate with anything in the podcast or with anything that I've said, it's just more about following the journey and coming along because, get connected with me, like just message me. Like I try to reach out and, get back to a lot of people, the most people that I can. So yeah, it's just, I think that's the best way for you to, for us to stay connected is just to follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Yeah, those two places.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll put all of that in the show notes for people to find. So,
Yeah.
thank you, Ethan.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Thank you so much, Braith. You're an awesome host.